She was 19 years old and she was selling encyclopedias. The sun went down on her in Anna, Illinois. And we know what Anna, Illinois means. Ain't no niggers allowed.
Let's talk about it, man. Let's talk about the hood. Let's talk about them gangs. Come on. That's in them penitentiaries for twisting their fingers. Let's talk about the hoovers, the Pyrus from looters. Let's talk about having some truces with trades and dudes. Come on. Let's talk about the racist shit and crooked politics. The government don't care about niggas, they love immigrants. Let's talk about my past. Let's talk about my pain. It's so hard to maintain wearing red flame. Let's talk about my thug. You know we had them drugs. Let's talk about that ghetto girl that betrayed my love. Let's talk about Farrakhan. Let's talk about the Bible. Let's talk about the Quran. Let's talk about Elijah. Let's talk about my daddy, my candy-coated caddy. Let's talk about my mama happy that she chose to have it. Let's talk about the kids. Let's talk about the blues. Tune into the Let's Talk Shop with that old school.
Hey, yo, what's up, y'all? Welcome back to the channel. First and foremost, I want to thank each and every one of the individuals who liked and commented on my Sundown Town video. I got a lot of positive feedback. Not too much negative. A few, hiccups up in there, but that's all good. That's expected. I got a lot of information. A lot of brothers tapped in and told me that they were in sundown towns and they shared their experience. Some people said that they never knew sundown towns existed, which I don't believe that. But hey, that's your truth, whether it's true or false. But my question is this: excuse me, do sundown towns still exist today in 2025? Now, I would say yes, they do. I can take you all the way back to when I was a young man, very young man. I think I was about the age of 20. No, I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I was because I purchased my first vehicle at 17 years old. And I was driving through Torrance, California. I'm gonna bring y'all up. But I was driving through Torrance, California. And I just purchased a vehicle. And you know that when you purchase a vehicle, you have to have insurance. You got to have all that before you take it off the lot. Now, I didn't have the registration. You know, when you get a vehicle, you you get the registration, but they got to mail that to you. So they back then they gave you this little sticker that you put in your back window. So I was riding through Torrance, California, and police got right behind me. I'm talking about I just purchased this vehicle. I just purchased it the same day. Pulled it off the lot. I'm going to my girlfriend's house. Back then, this is my girl, my wife today, but she was my girlfriend back then. I'm driving down the street and I made eye. I'm going east. This cop was going west. And as soon as we made eye contact, he looked at me, put his lights. I said, I know he finna come fuck with me. And he did just that. He did just that. He pulled me over and I gave him my license. I gave him everything. I even had insurance. But the tag, he said he didn't want to accept it. You know what he told me? He said, that piece of paper is like toilet paper to me. And he impounded my car. They ain't want black people driving through Torrance at all. And this was in the daytime. This wasn't even at night. This was during the day, right? So I went, I got my vehicle back. My pops came down there and he gave me my vehicle back. And you know what? I was a young man. I was a young man. And I remember saying to the officer, I remember saying, thank you after he gave me my keys back. I'm 17 years old. I didn't know no better. And because I really thought I did something wrong, which I know I didn't do nothing wrong, but I'm like, damn. I knew he was on some bullshit, right? So I remember I go to my pops came down there with me, and I remember my pops, he had his words with the officers, and I mean when they gave me my keys back, and I said thank you, and my pops looked at me. He said, "You don't never thank a motherfucker for fucking you," and that's stuck in my mind. And I was like, damn. So fast forward a few years later, me and my old lady, we still rocking. She get her own vehicle. She get her own vehicle. We drive. We go pick my mom up, and we didn't even make it to pick my mom up. The police get behind. She in her car, but I'm driving. Same officer. Would you believe? Same officer. He run my tags. He said he run my license. He said, "Didn't you have?" Because I was in a Chevy Beretta. I was in a Chevrolet Beretta. Years later, it was about maybe I say it was about maybe 3, 4, maybe 5 years later. We going through the same city of Torrance. Same police officer pulled me over. He said, "You upgraded to Focus." My wife she had a Ford Focus. He impounded my wife's car. Now this time, her dad goes down to the Torrance Police Department, and he's an older gentleman. My father-in-law is old enough to be my parents. Her mother and father, they old enough to be my parents. So when he went down there to retrieve my wife's car, I heard him say to the officers, there, he said, "You guys have been doing the same practices that you were doing when my son was a young man. Haven't changed. And when you look on the wall for the years of chiefs and officers, all you saw was white boys. You ain't see no blacks. And I don't even know if it's a black person at work at the Torrance PD, he's so uncomfortable, right? So I never thought that, Torrance was a safe place for blacks. After that, I knew. I'm like, oh, and a officer told either my father-in-law. He told my father-in-law. He said, "We are trained as police officers in the city of Torrance, California, that when you see black people driving nice cars, they're either drug dealers or they're doing something wrong. Pull them over. Whenever you see black people driving through the city of Torrance, pull them over." And that's what they did. So I've always seen that. Another spot was Glendale, California. Glendale, California. You go out there, if it's dark, you definitely gonna get pulled over. Most certain, right? But my question is, how can you not know that there were ever sundown times? I believe people know that, and I know people know this. This is the reason why we pack food on the road. My grandmother, whenever we would go visit her, she lived in St. Louis, Missouri. That's where I was born. Whenever we would leave there and travel back to California, my grandmother would stay up all night. She would stay up making chicken wings, all kind of little snacks and everything, so we wouldn't have to stop, because black people in her day couldn't stop off to get food. They didn't have that luxury. So she would pack all of these good things and snacks for us to eat along the way. And that sustained us until we got to our final destination, right? The term "get in here before the street lights come on," that comes from sundown towns. You know, the street lights come on when the sun go down. So that's why in the black community, we always heard, "Hey, you better get home before them street lights come on." We was racing to get home. I'm talking about, listen, man, eh, eh, my black people, we know we would run home as if our life depended on it, because that's what we was taught through sundown towns. You had to get out of there. It was certain places where they said they had signs that said the sun may not come down on you, nigger. The sun bet not catch you, nigga. These are the signs that they had, right? Imagine the psychological trauma that our people had to go through to witness that. Now, another thing that they used to do in these sundown towns, and they made a movie about this, man. Ice-T and Charles S. Dutton played in it. And correct me if I'm wrong. The name of the movie, I believe it was Surviving the Game. Surviving the Game. But in the movie, they had a few white men, and Charles S. Dutton was the only black dude on, on this crew. Now, what they used to do back in the day in these sundown towns was they would gather up all of the black people, not all, but as many as they could, and they would wait. Let me back up. What they would do, they would hold these things. They were called, you know, hunting parties. They were called hunting parties, and what they would do is they would gather up, and you had to get a license, just like you get a fishing license. That week or whenever it was, you go hunt. What they would do, they would round up as many black people as they could, and they would set them loose, and they would go hunt them. They would let the dogs loose and go hunt them. It's men today that are alive that can attest to this. It's men alive today that can attest to this, because a lot of them escaped, and unfortunately, many didn't. Can you imagine this? Being hunted that way? If you go look at the movie Surviving the Game, they always put it in the movies. They always put it in the movies. And in this movie, it was a bunch of white men. Charles S. Dutton was the only black man. And they were hunting Ice-T. They let him loose in the woods and they hunt. That's what they used to do to us in these sundown towns when they caught you. So don't for one moment believe that these sundown towns don't still exist. You got a lot of things happening in these towns today, and they don't even speak on it. It's somebody being violated right now as we speak because they in a town that's deemed to be a sundown town. The bells on the city hall in a lot of these cities and small towns, that was to alert black people. They would ring that bell around between 5 and 6, to let you know it's time for you to get out of town. They would start ringing that bell. They would ring that bell. You know, when I was on the road as a trucker, I used to go through these small cities and towns, and I would say, "Damn, why they got a bell right there?" Because a lot of times you would see bells on churches, okay, and we know what the bell was on the churches. So I would ask myself, why is the bell on the city hall or in the middle of the city hall area? Hold on one second. Let me figure something out here. Let me figure this out. Because I can't do this here. I just enabled it, but it's not doing nothing. Okay. Okay, I don't want that. I don't want that. But anyhow, I would look and I would see these bells on the top. I said, why they got a bell right there? What they ringing that bell for? That bell was let us know it's time for us to get out of town. And they used interracial rape to make these towns sundown towns. They would say that, hey, a black man raped a white woman. So that gave them the excuse to go in and clear the town out, burn down all of the black people's homes, clear it out, and then it's all white town now. Now when they catch a black person there after dark, um, they do whatever they want. They do whatever they want. If it was a black man, they hung him, they beat him real bad. So on some cases, a lot of men got away with their lives, but on many occasions, they didn't. A lot of men were hung, and they are still doing this today. They had a gentleman, I can't remember where it was. Y'all could put it in the comments. I don't remember where it was, but this young man was hung. And they said he hung himself. He was coming out of a Walmart. I'm going to put it in here. I'm going to put the, information in here so you can see. They do it all the time. And you don't hear no media coverage on it because the government, the media, all of the people that matter, they turn a blind eye when these things happen to black people. It's black people that never heard of sundown towns. But when a white person says they have never heard of a sundown town, it's hard for me to believe that. I won't believe it. I won't. Now, I had a young lady, excuse me, she wasn't a young lady. I believe she was in her 60s. She commented on my post. She said she was, I believe, 65 and she'd never heard of a sundown town until she saw my video. And she began to say that she was ashamed to be an American, to know that they are still treating Afro Americans this way in 2025. Now, when she said Afro American, because we don't call ourselves Afro American, that gave her age. And I know she was an elderly woman. And she proceeded to say she was Italian. Okay. Now, Italians don't pretty much rock with black people either. But she gave a message, and that's part of white society's hang up. They act as if they don't know what's going on. They turn a blind eye. That's the way for them not to hold each other accountable. They act as if they are so oblivious to what's going on. In reality, you know what's going on. You know exactly what's going on. Martin Luther King said, well, how did he phrase it? He said, pretty much, if you don't say nothing, you are an accomplice. You are an accessory to what's going on. And a lot of people, it's a lot of white people that turn a blind eye because white folks did horrendous things to their own people whenever they tried to step in to help us. So this is why they're not too quick to help us. They know history spoke to them to let them know, hey, you help them, you're gonna be called a end lover. They never wanted that. An end lover was damn near the same as an end. So my thing is when you had things like the hunting parties, you had the alligator bait. They used to use us for alligator bait. I know a lot of y'all know this, and a lot of y'all may not. So I'm gonna tell you a story. I'm gonna tell you a quick story. I think I was about I was in junior high school, and um I had this pen. It was a pen holder, but the pen holder was alligator. Imagine this being an alligator with the mouth open. Now, I had a pen that you stick the pen inside the mouth, and right here, it was a black baby. Now, I did not know what that was that I was holding on to. I just had it. I saw a black baby on it, and I put it, and then it looks like the black baby is in the alligator's mouth, and it held on to it. Now, once I became a truck driver, now mind you, I was in junior high school. When I became a truck driver, I would go all over the United States. I went into this store. It was like a antique store, and I saw that same pen with the pen holder in it. And I looked at the white man behind the counter, and I said, "Oh man, I had one of those." And he looked at me. He looked at me as if to say, "You had one of those?" And I know what he was saying. You had that in your hand. That was the equivalent of me having a antique picture or item of a noose with a black person hanging. But I didn't know this. And he told me, he said, "You know what? I know you're not from here because the way I pronounce my words, I articulated myself or I over enunciate, right? I didn't sound like a Southern man." He said, "You know what? Let me explain something to you. And I'm only going to tell you this because I know I'm never going to see you again." He was an old white man. And he had Confederate flags in this store, right? And as I'm looking, I said, "Damn." But he said, "Let me tell you something." He said, "Man, my grandfather told me that either it was his grandfather or his father. He said that he told him that when they were uh, young men, they would take black babies and use them for alligator bait." I said, "What do you mean? What do you mean you use alligator bait? How did you do that?" He said, "Well, we would tie a noose around black babies and we would throw them in the swamp. And when the alligator, you know, clamped down on them, we pull them out and we hit them in the head with a, what did he say, a pickaxe? It was something to kill them." He even said that they didn't only use babies; they would get black men and sometimes black women and break their legs so they couldn't run and throw them out there. They didn't even have to throw them out there. They would just put them right by the swamp, and the alligators would come up, and that's how they would get them. And he said the snake skin and the alligator skins that you guys, not the snake. He said the alligator skins that you guys love to wear. A lot of those come from bait from your people. I said, "Oh man, that's crazy, right?" And it didn't sit right with me because I remembered that pen and that pen holder. And I said, "Damn, imagine how many things we see on our day to day basis that was used to harm us," right? Just think about that. Now, I'm going to be interviewing a lot of elders coming up, and they going to get on my show and they going to tell about their experiences in sundown towns. That's what they going to do. They're going to tell you about their experiences in sundown towns. Now, I had quite a few. I had quite a few, but I was able somehow to get out with my life. Unfortunately, others weren't. So, comment, let me know. Do y'all want to hear about my other experiences in these sundown towns? Do you want to hear about others' experiences in sundown towns? And even listen, white people, if you want to speak, get on here and comment. You know about your sundown towns. You know about the you know what? One more thing I'm gonna explain. One more story. It was a young lady. I spoke on it briefly. It was a young woman. And if y'all get in the comments, y'all can speak her name. I don't want to speak her name. As a matter of fact, don't speak her name because her family is still here. She was 19 years old and she was selling encyclopedias. The sun went down on her in Anna, Illinois. And we know what Anna, Illinois means. Ain't no niggers allowed. So when the sun went down on her, a group of white males, they attacked her. And you can only imagine what they did to her. History speaks to what white men did to black women. They went back to that neighborhood. They still knew. Everyone in that neighborhood, years later, they went back to that neighborhood. Nobody wanted to talk about it. Nobody wanted to talk about it. But everybody in Anna, Illinois knew what happened to this young black woman who was selling encyclopedias. You can look that story up. The story, I believe, is in this book. It's in this book. Now, comment. Let me know because I'm going to bring y'all more of these stories and I'm going to get more into detail with them. Let me know if y'all into this here and drop your story because I know a lot of you have been in these sundown towns and you felt the pressure. You felt it. You felt it. So, comment. And those that are not subscribed, subscribe to the channel because I'm going to get y'all more stories like this. Until the next time, peace out.
Hey, love, let's talk about it, man.